Welcome to the Political Island podcast with your host, Josh. I'm Josh, your host, where we only talk about the most important political goings-on in America, starting today with Pokemon Go. Now, some of you may be giggling or maybe turning off this podcast already, but we have presidential candidates weighing in on Pokemon Go. There are questions being asked, and they're talking about them. I personally have not been playing Pokemon Go, mostly because I know I'll love it and I'll probably be addicted to it. I have several friends who have, and I just watch them, and sometimes I think maybe I'll do it, but I don't. And that's kind of the response that Donald Trump gave in an interview with Washington Examiner earlier this week, where someone asked him directly, "Are you playing?" And he said, "I wish I had time for it, but I don't," which is, what responsible adults say and do. Then Hillary Clinton at a rally last week. It was I don't know where she was, and I quote, "I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we can get them to Pokemon Go to the polls." I don't know what that means. She doesn't know what that means. It doesn't mean anything. And I don't blame her. She's 69 right now, but I blame her staffers. Have someone young. Let someone, when you're trying to connect with the youth, let someone young write your stuff. But there's no excuse for the campaign now with all these Bernie Sanders staffers out of work. But if Bernie would have still been in it, it would have been something like, "There's going to be a free Rattata and a free Pidgey in every house in America." I came across these stories while I was scrolling through my Facebook and came across a website called Heat Street. A little bit more research saw that it was started by a former member of Parliament of the Conservative Party, Louise Mensch. And I guess she was out of work, so she started it back this last February. And the story that I did come across was a story about a New York assemblyman, a Democrat from Brooklyn, of all places, Felix Ortiz, who apparently has a history of trying to kill New Yorkers' fun. He's proposed legislation against sugar, alcohol, and strip clubs, which, whether you want to go there or not, it's one thing. Whether you stop everyone else from going there is a total other thing. Then you have Minnesota Senator Al Franken, which will never sound right coming out of my mouth. A former Saturday Night Live cast member who's now a senator. It just feels weird every time it comes out of my mouth. Anyway, he's written a letter to Niantic Labs, who is kind of like the skunk works for Google, and asking them about what kind of data they're collecting on users, what they plan on doing with that data, which begs the question, why do Democrats need to put their hand in everything to try and regulate it? It's a game. And I realize there's the data part of it, and I'm just, are they doing the same thing for Sony and their PlayStation team? Are they doing the same for Microsoft and their Xbox team, which has more than 15 million users, unless I'm making stuff up? But I'm pretty sure both of those together have way more. Where are the hearings on them and their data and how they're using it? And the Pokemon Go technology isn't new. There was a game developed by Niantic Labs as well called Ingress that I had played some years ago now, and there were no hearings for it back then. So I don't know what compels the Democrat at their core to try and regulate and control anything that does well. And it goes back to their psyche of, well, we won't get in too deep to that right now, but I think it kind of speaks for itself that they see something do well and they have a need to control it, to be able to put a cap on it, and to be able to say, hey, I'm the big boy in charge here. Okay, that's enough Pokemon Go talk. But speaking of regulation, were the shootings of the $5 police officers by the sniper, and first thing president comes out, surprise, let's have more gun regulation, which, it is getting old, these shootings that are happening and people dying, but you take away the guns and apparently people start mowing you over with trucks instead. So I think it's a difficult situation because obviously there's something different that we need to do. And I think you see a lot of resistance from Republicans on it because, I don't know, for me, for instance, I don't want to have the government have more data, more control over whether I have a gun or not, whether my buddies have guns or not, and whether somebody in Washington State has a gun or not. I don't want them looking over my shoulder. I don't want them collecting data on me and centralizing that control. And I think that's the biggest part about why Republicans are so resistant to gun regulation. They don't want the centralized control. And I think there was a bill proposed, one of the shootings that had happened about, if you're on the no-fly list, then you should not be able to purchase a gun, which, on the surface makes sense. But the no-fly list is a secret list, and there's not judges and other stuff to be able to get on the no-fly list. You're just on it. And so how do you regulate that? How do you make sure that, some dumb 13-year-old who puts on a Hitler mustache because he thinks it's funny gets put on a no-fly list? And I think that's the part that they need to go after first. They need to go after, let's reform the no-fly list, and then we can start talking about it. But, there's the symbolism and, hey, what? I can't believe that Republicans would be so against this gun thing. And that's the show. That's the political aspect of it, is that Democrats don't want to work on the no-fly list. They just want to make Republicans look bad so they can have a fighting chance this next fall. It's not going to be good for them, heads up. But that's the game, and that's why nothing has been getting done. That there have been Republicans, which I'll name in a different show. I'm not going to look it up right now. But some Republicans who are trying to reform the no-fly list before we enact that kind of legislation. We don't want centralized control. We want you break it up into states, and then states, you can only buy in your state, and if you want to buy a gun out of state, then you have to wait a week to check with the state agency there for guns. Have 50 agencies that are, non-centralized national level. And I think that's a path that could work toward gun regulation that's responsible and probably good for America in the end. It'll probably reduce a lot of these shootings, will reduce a lot of these illegal arms. I feel like there's a path forward, and I'm not in the halls of Congress. I don't strike deals, and I wish I were. But I feel like there is a path, and both sides are resistant for whichever reason. Some people chalk it up to NRA money and their powerful influence on the Republican side. And part of it's to blame for Democrats, too, for not finding middle ground, for saying regulate or nothing, which is a common theme. And it's a great way to vilify your opponent, but it doesn't get anything done. So they're doing the power play. Republicans have not been wanting to compromise, mostly because apparently these days if you compromise in the party, you're not a pure conservative. And I myself have been called a rhino on a few occasions, which in case you don't know means Republican name only, because I may differ on a couple of different social issues. Now it's kind of just so old to hear. I kind of wear it with the badge of honor. That means that, I'm a little bit more practical Republican. And I'm a little bit on the socially liberal side. That's probably due to the fact that I'm young. And the good news is that's the future of the party, as I talk to some other young Republicans who are around me. But if you don't subscribe to this Puritan brand of conservatism that these Tea Party types have created, that Ted Cruz really, was the darling child of. The groups will come after you, and they will throw a lot of money to get those who are compromising out of office. Now, don't pretend like this is to the right only. Left side has it. It's shifting to the left. It keeps shifting to the left. I think the last Democrat who was a centrist was Mary Landrieu, senator from Louisiana, as far as a major political middle of the road type person went, who she was just weird. I've had several conversations about just how bizarre her being a senator was. But after she was voted out, I want to say 2014, that was it. You have the party of the left moving further to the left. You have the party of the right moving further to the right because of those in the middle being squelched out by the extreme parties on the other side. And that's where we are. That's why all of these TV shows go on talking about politics. That's why all the news stories keep getting bigger and bigger. These And with media being able to reach people instantly through Facebook, through other feeds, through Twitter, that's where we are. We're getting a lot more people involved right now, whether that's Trump's own doing, whether that is the news media itself, but that is the state of our politics right now, where we keep getting in a deadlock, and President Obama was not the soothsayer. He wasn't the uniter that he ran as, which, I don't know if anyone can do it, and that's what we're going to see. And I think that may be part of the appeal that Donald Trump has, which, let me make it very clear, I'm not voting Donald Trump. I never will vote Donald Trump, and I am not really crazy about the idea of a Trump presidency, mostly because he's unpredictable. His policies are just starting to evolve, but who really is Donald Trump? What kind of leader is he going to be? And I don't know who he is, and unless some revelation occurs before November, I'm going to be voting for throwing my vote away for a third-party candidate out of protest. So that is the nature of our nation right now. So, speaking of Trump, I don't know if you've seen it. It's absolutely awful. And I first saw it reported by one of my former colleagues I used to work with in Washington, D.C., Lee Munsell, who was defense reporter for Politico and now works as the campaign reporter for The Blaze. Go follow her on Facebook and Twitter and read her articles on The Blaze. She's very succinct, a great writer. But she had posted the picture of the new Trump-Pence logo, which is just absolutely, it's an atrocity. You have the T and the shafty part of the T going into the hole of the P, and then some stripes across the side. So it just, do we have any doubt about who's in charge of that campaign? Pretty sure it's Donald Trump, as he's topping Pence. And who knows with this guy? Maybe that's what he did on purpose. He created this awful symbol to get attention. It's certainly gotten more than Hillary's, and gotten more attention than whoever Hillary may or may not be choosing, which I got a feeling is going to be Cory Booker. He's a young senator with ambiguous ethnic background from New Jersey. He's aggressive. He's young. I think he'd probably be a good alternative to the party for Sanders. I think he can maybe reel in some of those younger people. So hopefully Democrats try to get someone who's not almost a septuagenarian to lead their party. And anyway, the logo's awful. And I was thinking way back to the McCain-Palin campaign, and how they just had McCain-Palin. That's it. That was their logo. And that's when Obama really used that first iconic O with the hills that are the stripes, which really reminded me of like a retirement home, like Happy Acres, where old people go to die, something like that. And I think since then we've had just this excess of logos. I guess businesses got involved, logo marketing brands got involved, but that's something I didn't think about really until just now, that we're in a logo world where symbols are what mean things as opposed to the substance behind them. And and not that it doesn't matter anymore, but there's this shift to what the face of it is. And I don't know if it really means anything significant or big, but it's just an interesting shift, how we see things, the branding and so forth. But now you have this cool looking O that can go next to your Gore Lieberman 2000 sticker and your Bush lied, people died sticker. So that's good. At least things look better, right? I think this is all I'm going to crank out for the first show. I'm going to see what the response is. If you like what I've done here, send me a message. I'm sure I'll make a Facebook page. Give that a like. Just if it's good, let me know. If it's bad, please let me know. And not just that what I think is bad, but rather that I'm terrible at this. So thank you for listening to my first episode. There will be another, even if people did say I did bad. And I will talk to you very soon. This has been Political Island Podcast. Aloha.